All right, we are back for another video. I'm wearing all my bracelets today. I got the green jade stone, I got the white jade stone, I got the tiger's eye. I got a lot going on here today with all the spiritual properties. A jade stone is just known for so much healing, spiritual connection, getting to your conscious self. So I'm wearing it all today with my moon ring, and as usual, my bare feet. I don't know if you guys see it, but here we are, just getting cozy. So we're going to talk about healing today. We're going to talk about healing when moving through mental health. We're going to talk about healing when moving through trauma. It really is whatever you are moving through, from going from one version of yourself to another version of yourself. So I want you to get cozy because I've got a lot to share, and as usual, I always take the time to put it into the notebook. So if you see me looking here, it's just I don't want to forget anything. There's so many details I want to share with you guys today. Okay, so how did I grow up? I grew up in a very sheltered world, and I was like the happiest, creative, artsy, hippie, gypsy, juju, woo-woo kid. Like I just, I was reading cards and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And I say crazy because like some people think it is, and I just embrace it all. Doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I lived a very innocent life. And then at a young age, I had a lot of trauma happen. Something you should know about me, I lost six close family members in the span of 5 years. I realized my father was alcoholic. We had gone through financial issues, and my parents got evicted from our home. In turn, I lived in my car. Developed a lot of stomach aches, went through a breakup with my first love, and we know our first love is like we are getting married, and it is everything. Your first love is such a big heartache. All this happened in a short period of time. Developed stomach aches, realized I had OCD, landed in an eating disorder. There are layers. We will get to that in another video, not today. Why I'm sharing that with you is because all of these things, these traumas, led into the mental health challenges that I faced. And now that I'm on the other side of all of this, and the true healing and my becoming has arrived, there's a lot of growth. And I'm sharing that with you because maybe you are moving through a season where you are healing and you are in your becoming. And when I say healing, I mean like it's hypothetical. We can look at this as you are in a growth phase, because the healing never stops, the growing never stops, and you absolutely do not want it to. You don't want it to, because if it stops, you kind of stop living. I mean, we're always in a place of growing. I always have clients ask me, when is this over? And it's like, do you want it to be over? I don't want it to be over. I want to keep growing and keep advancing. Anyway, I'm going to pause here. Let's go back to the point. We are talking about you moving through a period of your life where you are healing, or you are on the other side, or you are in a transition of growth. Healing is so beautiful. Healing is so beautiful. And for a lot of us, we may want to get better, but we are stopping ourselves. So for a very long time, when I was in the thick of my eating disorder, when I was in the thick of the OCD and the anxiety and the panic attacks and like the bunches of things that kind of fed into the traumas that I had gone through, I wanted to get better, but it took me that much longer to commit to getting better. So if you are in a state and you're like, I just want to be better, sometimes, I know this is hard to hear, but we don't get better because we want to stay unwell in a subconscious place, because our challenges, our mental health diagnosis, our traumas are serving us. How do they serve us? How could that even be possible? I want you to think about this. For me, I'm going to be honest. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to be taken care of. So when I was in the thick of my eating disorder and when I was going through it, it felt like I needed to be in this space in order for people to see me. Like, hey, like I'm over here, see me, see me. And so that meant that the disorder stayed even louder because it was serving a part of me. So how can this serve you? You know, you might be looking to be seen like I was. You might be looking for care. You might be looking for validation. You might have your identity so attached to what you are going through, your trauma, the unwellness. Is that a word, unwellness? Being unwell. You might be so attached to the storyline of this identity that it's scary to leave it. You might not want to admit that you are going through something. Maybe you have an addiction. Maybe you don't want to admit this because that means you have to get better. And getting better is scary because you don't know anything else. It has been the coping mechanism for so long. The other part of getting better is like, well, this leaves room for like, what if I don't? Failure, right? So my point is that whatever you're moving through is serving you in some way, especially if it's a coping mechanism masking the way you feel. You might be feeling feelings and you have turned to something in order to make you feel better. So again, it's serving you. This is why we hold on to staying unwell. This is why sometimes we think we want to grow, but we don't. What I want you to know for 100% certainty is that all the reasons that might rest in your subconscious that you have to get honest about are not as good as it will feel when you are on the other side. It is not going to feel as good as your life does when you are healed. And some people are scared of the change that comes along with healing. And that is the deep conversation we're going to get into today. Because with change, with growth, there's so much that starts to shift. Your relationships start to shift and you start to change. I have changed like 1,000 times. And so have you actually. You've changed 1,000 times because you are not the same person you were when you were 10 years old, when you were 16 years old, when you're in your 20s, when you're in your mid 30s, 40s, 50s. You are different. So you have had 1,000 deaths and 1,000 rebirths of a newer version of you. So though healing and changing and growing might feel scary, you already have so many times before and you've adapted to that change. However, I'm going to share with you some of the changes that I saw as I moved through my healing. It isn't easy. And I say it like with a lot of emotion because a lot of this change has been really difficult to accept and to see. But on the opposing side, grief and joy can dance together. And I want you to remember that. Grief and joy can dance together. So as we're changing and as we're evolving, it kind of feels like you're standing in a forest and parts of you are peeling off like a snake's skin, just like shedding. It can feel like, oh my God, like I have no choice but to just surrender to this because the layers are coming off and the work that I'm doing, things are changing. And then on the opposing side, it could also feel like you're really lost and don't know where to turn to. So like there are so many layers to this growth, but there's so much adventure. There's so much adventure. So I'm just trying to like bring it in and help you understand that if you're moving through it, I see it, I get it, I know it. Or if you're reluctant to move towards your healing journey, these are the reasons why you should. Because it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Okay, so some of the things that I started to see shift and change as I was healing. My friendships absolutely began to change. I I've always been a bit of a people pleaser. So that means I have old patterns. I've talked about it openly in other videos. I have patterns where I would show up as like extra because I wanted to be loved, and that was a pattern from my childhood. I felt like I had to go above and beyond to seek validation for people to love me because I had this belief that I couldn't just be loved for who I was. So that meant that as I started to grow and as I started to heal these old belief systems that didn't serve me, my friendships started to change because I started to have boundaries. I no longer wanted my friendships to be one-sided where it was give, and there was no return. I wanted an energy share. I wanted us to feel like we were feeding into one another. I wanted deeper connection. I wanted friendships where we had commonalities, where we helped each other grow. So that meant that there were friendships that I had to close the door to. So again, like there's some loss here, but there's also new beautiful friendships being created, new relationships starting, and finally creating boundaries in my friendships. So healing was offering all these new changes where I was feeling more full inside. Other things that shifted was even my relationship with my family. Now this goes back because I was 17 when my traumas and the effects on my mental health and body started to come into play. And who I was before that, I mean, I talked about it in the beginning. Like I lived this very innocent life, but also there was a time where like I was very religious. My family grew up very Catholic. My grandmother prayed and went to church, and we would go to church, and I would go to bed with the rosary. I was very religious, and as I started to heal and shift and change, my belief system also did. So there was like a transition there where I always say spirituality chose me. I didn't choose it for multiple reasons, and we'll get into that another time. But like my belief system started to change. So that was one. The way I fed into religion was different. The way I ate, because coming from an eating disorder background, I viewed food so differently than my family. I now saw it as fuel and health and also enjoyment, family, connection, culture. It was very different from the way my family would eat. And they would say things like, you don't eat that, like that's weird. Why are you eating that? And then they've accepted it over time. But like these are changes that started to happen, right? And through that change, there's a transitional phase of like, oh, I'm being judged, and then it's standing in my power. So like shifting and growing, oh God, you guys, like it's a journey, it's a roller coaster. But these are areas that started to change. The relationship with my family started to change as well, instilling boundaries in my family system. Just because you are close with your family, and just because it's a mother, a father, a sibling, an aunt, an uncle, doesn't mean you shouldn't have boundaries in how the relationship should filter through so that it remains healthy. So I started creating boundaries in my family system as well, because it meant that if I did this, I would be healthy, I would be well. What else started to change? If it wasn't just friends, family, the way I showed up at work also. I had gone through burnout really bad a couple of years ago. Gosh, I think it was like 8 years ago now, maybe more. I had gone through major burnout. Even though my healing journey has been like 15 years, I would push myself, because again, I'm that people pleaser. As I've healed, I no longer want to push myself to the point of absolute burnout because I care about my body, mind, and spirit. It's all interconnected. So again, these shifts and changes start to come in. And I always talk about the shift and change. I think I say that word a lot. If you listen back to my videos, I'm like, the shift, the change, it's all happening. The way I showed up at work was different. And this leads into my marriage ending. And I keep bringing this up because it's kind of what I'm going through right now. It is so amicable, but as I changed, the connection I wanted in my relationship changed. The love I wanted changed. The support I wanted changed. What I enjoyed changed. it's really hard, but also really beautiful. And we both understood that who I was when I entered my relationship, very unwell, had to make a shift. I don't want to be the same girl my partner met at 17. So a part of me was like so sad because like now that I was on the other side of all these challenges that me and my partner faced, I had kind of outgrown the relationship. And he did too. We both changed so much. And as I'm saying this, I know if you're in a relationship and you are moving through a mental health challenge, you might hear change and think it is scary. And I know that because if I had been on the other side watching this video, I would be like, oh my God, I don't want to heal. I don't want to lose my partner. I don't want to lose friendships. I don't want to lose people in my life. But there is so much beauty that comes with this. And I'm saying this in the thick of a separation, in the thick of lost friendships. And even looking back years ago, some of the friends that are no longer in my life. There's so much beauty in healing. Why? Because you get closer to yourself again. You start to love yourself on a level that you didn't even know was possible. You start to love people more than you could have ever imagined. And if I go back even 3 years ago, I remember again, like another layer of my healing. I was leveling up. We level up. And I remember looking at my partner going, gosh, I've never loved you so much. There's space to love people even more than you ever imagined. When people say you can't love someone unless you love yourself, I don't think that's true. I think you can love people, but I think when you really start to love yourself and you're moving through like such deep change, the love you have for people intensifies that much more. And I freaking love people. What else do I have here? Okay. You finally start committing to you, and that's really beautiful as you're changing and growing and moving out of your challenges, your mental health disorders, whatever it is you're moving from. The commitment to you is so beautiful because you are growing. You might have space now for career opportunities, feeding into a hobby. There are things that you can invite into your life that invite more passion, more love, more creativity. There's so much there for you. You create better friendships. You start to try new things. So much beauty in the growth and the change. You finally know who you are, and you are so unapologetic for the person you are. You know what you want. You know what you don't like. You know the friendships you want in your life. You know the career you want. You know the things that bring you the most joy. You know if you listen to this type of music, you feel good. You know if you go into this environment, it's not so great for you. All of this comes from true growth, true healing. Your confidence increases because you've just proven to yourself that you can get through any sort of shit. Like you can just stand tall. So even though it is scary to think about the things that start to shed off of you, like a snake shedding its skin, there is so much that comes from the shedding, so much growth. So yes, a part of you has to die if you are going to change and move into a space of healing. Even if that means a 17-year relationship ends, even if that means your best friend that you've had your whole life is no longer a part of the journey. As a part of you dies, another part is reborn. And I want you to take this information and feed into that growth and to know that you can, to be honest with yourself. If you are holding on to a past version of you, an identity that no longer serves you, to let it go. You deserve to grow. You deserve to be free. You deserve to live your best life. Because what's on the other side is going to be so much better than the place that you're in. This just surviving is not good enough. You need to thrive, you need to live, and you need to encourage yourself to bring in the life that you want, to attract the people into your life that match your vibration. I promise you, if you commit to healing, yes, there's going to be loss, but there is going to be so much to gain.